All right, everybody, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Can I get a thumbs up? Can everybody hear me okay? Wait, how about this? Nope, too much. Way higher?
Turn up the volume.
I've been trying. Hold on 1 second. All right, can somebody tell me if this worked or helped out?
Great.
Yeah, okay. All right, welcome everybody. We're gonna go ahead and get started with roll call. Sam Schoenberg.
Present.
Jenny Schaefer.
Here.
Marilio Garcia is here. Today's agenda, as you all know, we go through our updates first, and then we will be digging into the process for approving CPD's budget, going through a review of 2024's budget so that we can prepare for 2025. Ultimately, the purpose of today is to hear your priorities, hear your thoughts, get your input on what CPD should be focusing on, because we have a pathway to provide that feedback through the commission, Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, the CCPSA. We'll dig into that in just a second, but of course, we're going to go in through our updates, and we have a couple of votes so that we can better attend to these meetings, because first on the voting list is actually tech equipment for our meetings so that we can go and actually live stream these meetings, get better microphones so that we don't have audio issues on the recordings. So we have that on the docket. We also have another one that we'll get to here in a second. Do I have a motion for budgetary expenditures for IT equipment for a monthly meeting recordings live stream up to $450?
I'd like to make the motion.
Jenny Schaefer makes the motion. Any adjustments or discussion that we need to make?
I second the motion.
Schoenberg seconds the motion. So specifically, we want a webcam, optional mics, just in case we need to have one for each of us. Also a tripod to set up the camera, and then a USB hub that connects everything to our computer. And we do have a live stream software that we have through the CCPSA. So just a quick rundown of those needs.
Can I add just one thing? I'm sorry, Jay.
Just to speak in favor of this, did you mention that we had $5,000 total this year?
I haven't today.
All right, well, just so everyone's aware, we've been told we have a total of $5,000 to spend through the end of this calendar year from the total CCPSA budget. We've already allocated some funds for speaker services and printing. This, I think, would be a great enhancement to recording what we do here at these meetings, but also making it so that not everyone has to come out in person to participate, although coming in person will always be the most fun, and we're so grateful for you being here. But it certainly was my experience during the pandemic that things like CAPS meetings that went online were much easier for community members to attend, and we want to just increase our accessibility. So I'm very much in favor of this.
All right, so all in favor of voting for IT equipment for monthly meeting recording / live stream up to $450?
Aye.
All three ayes have it, so we will be using those expenses for IT equipment. Next up is a vote for updated mental health palm cards. As many of you know, we've created palm cards for the 19th district, passing those out to businesses, community members, community groups. I'm sorry?
Card, the blue card, tiny print.
Yes.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, the little black and gray ones. We're going to make more of those with updated information, yes.
And would be larger in print, much.
We have a request to create those with much bigger print.
So we have purposely made them small so people can fit them in their pockets and have them to be able to carry around. We do have a digital copy that I'm happy to share with you. And I'm sure we could, it could be printed out on a bigger piece of paper, but the digital copy is like a Instagram size square. So you could be able to print it as big as you needed to.
Well, the question is, I think the wording is great. Well, it's very effective, you can't expect the elderly people in particular, as those with some visual problem. They're not gonna.
We did make a Braille copy for people who needed it. Yeah, I know, I just want people to know that we are trying to make it as accessible as possible. We are trying to make different posters. Also, we'll talk and we'll try and figure out a way to make something that'll work for you. Yeah,
Sounds
Not on
good.
the next-
Oh, yep. A folding,
Yeah. Oh, that's. a
folding
good one.
ties. Yeah, thank you. So
Thank
do,
you.
do I have a motion to vote on updated mental health pump cards up to $150?
Motion. to
Jenny
vote.
Schaefer, motions votes. Any adjustment needed? Or discussion? Do you second the motion?
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor of updating mental health pump cards, 1,000 in English, 100 in Spanish, up to $150 expenditure?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the ayes have it. We'll be spending on the updated mental health palm cards. Yes, ma'am.
Should,
Yes.
are they gonna be substantially different than what we already have?
Slightly different. So we have an exciting announcement that we're gonna share about 988, the 988 phone number, and it's becoming way more accessible for folks. And that's what the change is gonna be. The top number, instead of being the NAMI helpline, is gonna be the 988 number. So thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so we're gonna go into our monthly updates. We first have workforce allocation study.
This is actually disappointing news. I see a bunch of new faces. Just so everybody knows, the workforce allocation study is something that our district council has been advocating for quite some time now. It's something that has shown support across city council, the inspector general, the independent monitoring team. Many people across the city see the importance of the workforce allocation study, so much so that city council passed an ordinance saying that this had to happen within our city. This was when was it, February that they passed the ordinance?
January, February.
And every 3 months, the department is supposed to update the community with where we are in the workforce allocation study. The update was due to us September 1st. Nobody has received that update yet. So we are feeling very frustrated. We've been trying to reach out to different people to understand where we are. It sounds like the contract still has not been signed by all parties. It sounds like the funders still need to go ahead and sign on. So we are frustrated about this. We're taking some really big steps, I think, to really push forward and making sure that this gets done. One thing is we raised it up to the CCPSA commissioners. And we were told that because of our advocacy around this issue, that's going to be they're going to have a renewed focus on making sure that this gets completed. They have a job of setting goals with CPD, and one of their goals is to make sure this workforce allocation study gets completed. So trying to make sure that there's some follow through and understanding for the community of where that is. We've also been emailing quite a bit with the Joyce Foundation, who are the funders, and trying to figure out how much information they can share. Right now, they're kind of saying we can't share a lot, but we're asking questions like, they have promised that community will be engaged and have input in this process. So why is that not happening? When will that happen, and how can we get that input? And then finally, the city council passes ordinance. Tomorrow is a police and fire committee meeting alongside the public safety committee meeting. I will be going to make public comment and just asking them and reminding them that this was an obligation that the department had, that the city has to complete, and wondering when that's going to be done and what are the next steps. So this is something that's really important, and we think for many reasons it's going to help us in our what public safety and policing looks like, making sure that we use the resources that we do have available to us in the most effective and efficient ways. So we will continue to advocate for that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the CPD has a quarterly update. What is their role in this? They're not reviewing their own allocation.
I think they're just updating the community on where no, they are not the one. There's a third party that's doing the research. They're just updating community on where things stand in the process of the study.
The contract has not been signed by all parties, so it hasn't been started.
Correct.
Be frustrated too.
Yeah.
Are you saying there's a CPA or an accountant that sees it, looks at it every quarter? Or is that the third party?
The third party is Matrix, which is the consulting firm who's doing the study. And then so there's actually three parties. There's the city and CPD. There is the Matrix, the consulting firm, and then the funders, which is the Joyce Foundation.
Got one more question.
Another question?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, the Chicago Leader put out a front page story about officers who are on the do not call list, the state's attorney's office. That is, they have been, for technical or disciplinary reasons, they cannot be called in cases of, that go to trial. They cannot be, their work cannot be trusted, or some other technical points. I'm wondering if this is under the purview of the workforce allocation study. How are these officers who are ineligible essentially to, testify in court? If an officer responds to a call that I make in our district, how do I know that, the officer who's responding to me can then go and testify? Yes, I saw the alleged perpetrator fleeing the scene, or, is that part of the workforce allocation that is part of this contract or this potential contract?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that's why we want to make sure that community engagement, community has input on what this looks like, because those questions need to be answered, and we need to figure out how those situations are addressed, because that is a concern that I share as well.
Final question.
Yeah.
Sorry, where are our aldermen, we have several aldermen here in the police board. Where do they stand on pushing this? I know that Angela Clay sits on the police and fire committee.
Yes, I am going to that committee meeting tomorrow, so I'll continue, I'll let you know. Right now, I will tell you, Alderman Matt Martin is very supportive and is my main contact to make sure that this happens, and he has also expressed a lot of frustration around what is happening from the city level. Yeah.
Quick question, what can we do to help this, to yell about it? What do you want us to do, call Alderman's office?
That would be awesome. Yes, call your Alderman's office is always a good idea, and let them know that this is a priority.
I have to
We,
have my Alderman's absolutely for this. Bennett.
yeah, when we're in communication, but I think the more they hear from the community that they want to see this passed. We've in the past had a community sign a letter in support and showed it to the alders. We can consider putting something like that together again and just continuing to remind them how much the community wants to see this happen.
I can, I'll email and text a whole bunch of people that I know and have them do it.
Amazing.
Most of them will.
Amazing.
But is that like something that actually helps in the city of Chicago? That's what I meant. To get some, because I read your 35-page PowerPoint on the website. I thought that was really good and nicely done. It's very informative. And it pissed me off. And so that's why, because the fact that we've had these types of things done in recent years that were not transparent to the taxpayers. And so like this one, we got to make it happen, and it can't take 5 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think any way of making noise does make a difference. Aldermen who get calls to their office care about that and listen to them, especially if it's from their own constituents. That gets recorded, that gets reported to the alderperson. The boards are small enough that they respond. Public comment at hearings is also an important way of making your voice heard. So when Jenny's saying she's going to the police and fire committee tomorrow to make public comment, if you wanted to join her, that's a great way to get your voice heard by the older people on that committee, which is a great way to make your voice known as well. It is indirect. I mean, it's CPD is the contracting authority here under the ordinance. So I don't know great ways to make that voice known directly to CPD. Another way of making your voice heard is comment to the CCPSA, the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. There's lots of avenues. They're all a little indirect. Does it make a difference? Absolutely. And so we'd love to work with you on making sure that that's done in the most effective way.
One last thing, Dad, I think that was a great suggestion to reach out to the CCPSA commission, which their email address is, at least for the public comment for, I think there's like a public comment. Hold on. Well,
I'm sorry, I can
okay,
start.
we'll find that email and we'll share, because that is a really good idea to talk to the commission, because they hear us talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think if they would be even more inclined to move forward if they hear from the community.
The community commission's email, it's really easy. Community commission public comment at cityofchicago.org. It's real long, but we can send it to you.
Can you repeat that?
All spelled out, community commission public comment at cityofchicago.org, O-R-G.
And the 46 ward, or sorry, the 19th district alder people who sit on the police and fire committee are Alderwoman Clay and Alderman Knudsen.
Knudsen.
Knudsen. Okay, great question. Oh, yes.
Public comment written, it's going to be there tomorrow. What is the ask?
So unfortunately, the deadline for written comment was today. But you know, knowing that there is support behind this is definitely something I could bring to public comment, that that this was something that the community was very interested in making sure passed as well. I can bring your voices.
And I think in general, just to answer your question, is the ask is to prioritize the workforce allocation study so that it is completed in a timely manner because it's already delayed in its progress. So I think that would be just the general ask for the community.
Yeah.
Sam next.
Okay. Thank you for those great questions.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Moving on, so as a reminder for those who might not know, I represent the 19th Police District on the committee of 22 district council members from throughout the city who nominate members of the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. It's one of our key hard powers that district councils have, is being the gatekeepers for who can sit on this commission. And those commissioners exercise really important oversight authority over Chicago policing and police accountability agencies. For instance, they are the ones that nominated now Superintendent Snelling to Mayor Johnson, and the mayor could only choose the superintendent from among those that the CCPSA sends them. So there's 7 members on the CCPSA. For the first year in office, I worked with the nominating committee of other district council members to come up with a process for nominating commissioner candidates to the mayor. That process completed in March of this year, and we nominated 15 candidates to Mayor Johnson. He named 7 of those candidates to appoint to the commission. 6 of those candidates were confirmed in June. One candidate, a youth commissioner candidate, because there need to be 2 members of the commission between the ages of 18 and 24 when they take office. One of those candidates was sort of left waiting in the wings because he is also a staffer for a sitting alderperson, and there were concerns on the police and fire committee that might present a conflict with his aldermanic office while also serving on his commission. Over the intervening months, the Board of Ethics for Chicago gave a written opinion that there was no conflict with the Chicago Ethics Ordinance for this candidate, whose name is Angel Ruby Navarrijo, from taking a seat on the commission. There was no conflict with any ethical ordinance for accepting the stipend to serve on a commission, which is $1,000 a month. The Department of Law also gave an opinion that they could find no prohibition in any city law for him taking the appointment. So all of those issues were addressed over the course of several months. Angel also formed a work agreement with his boss, Alderwoman Lenny Mana Hoppenworth in the 48th Ward, to make sure that there were very clear lines of when he would act on behalf of the commission, when he would act on behalf of the alderperson's office, making sure their roles were clear, making sure that he was not the main representative of that ward to CPD. But I do want to, I was among the people that nominated this candidate, and he's just a remarkable person. And it really, I was personally hurt that his nomination was being held up for reasons that had been addressed actually months ago. He's just 23 years old. He's already worked for all levels of government, either as an intern or as a paid staffer. He got a recommendation to the CCPSA from the former commander of the 20th Police District just north of us, as being someone who's level-headed and was really able to mitigate a series of public safety issues in the 48th Ward. He's a undocumented dreamer who has DACA status and has already served on the Non-Citizen Advisory Council for the Interim Community Commission for Public Safety. Just a remarkable guy. And it's hard to find someone as qualified as him regardless of age, to serve on the commission, let alone someone who's just 23 years old. So the nominating committee took steps over the last month to send a letter to the full city council on behalf of the nominating committee, explaining all of this and explaining all the rationales for his appointment. 6 of us went in person to the police and fire committee meeting last week when they took this up again to give public comment and speak on behalf of his candidacy. And in a pretty close vote, it shouldn't have been this close, but the police and fire committee did vote to advance his candidacy, which was a huge milestone. The next day, the full city council confirmed his nomination to the commission 31-14, which is a pretty overwhelming majority. So we're just happy to see that take place and wanted to let you know that there's a new commissioner on the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. Well,
Great advocacy.
Well, it meant a lot to a lot of people on this committee, and I will say that I know we are all kind of worried about the state of our democracy right now. One of the things that has made me feel better about it has been working on this nominating committee, which brings together district councilors from across Chicago who run the gamut from police abolitionists to people who are retired from CPD and members of the Police Memorial Association or Foundation, and have a very different view of things. But we've all been able to sort of come together, work through differences, generally find consensus, and it's on some very hot button issues. So it's been a good process, and I want to make sure that you're updated on it. Going forward, we have a full commission for now. There actually will be an upcoming vacancy because one of the commissioners that has recently taken office, Kelly Presley from the West Side, found her dream home. It happens to be in Oak Park, Illinois, and you can't serve on this commission if you don't live in the city of Chicago. So she is unfortunately resigning her position effective October 31st. The nominating committee in advance of this will be opening applications to fill that seat on October 7th. The application will be open for 30 days. And then the committee will take the applications, and we have 30 days to give our recommendation to the mayor. We are looking specifically for someone who fits geographic and skill set requirements on the commission. So for this particular person, they need to be in a neighborhood on the west side of Chicago, one of the west side community areas, which is defined by ordinance. This will be in the application for what specifically those are. And this person needs to be an attorney with at least 10 years of experience as an attorney and with significant experience in criminal defense or prosecution or in civil liberties or civil rights. So it's a very specific kind of person we'll be looking for this position. We'll be getting as many applications as we can. So please stay tuned for that. And if you know anyone who might be good for it, please let them know this opportunity will be forthcoming.
I have a question for you, Sam. The folks that previously applied, are they eligible to reapply?
Yes. The previous applicants are eligible to reapply.
Okay.
Thinking on it at this moment, I'm not sure there's anyone in our previous applicant pool who fits that specific profile. Just for everyone's awareness, the commission has to have at least 2 members from the north side, 2 from the south side, 2 from the west side. There also needs to be at least 2 lawyers with 10 years of experience, at least 2 youth members between the ages of 18 and 24 when they take office, and at least 1 member who's a community organizer with at least 10 years of experience with formal affiliation with a community-based organization. So it's a lot of puzzle pieces we have to put together as a committee. Question?
You say west side. How do you define west side or west side?
There are 77 community areas. The question is, how do you define West Sider? There are 77 community areas in the city of Chicago. The ordinance lays out, and they have specific geographic areas. The ordinance lays out which ones count as West Side. We will put that information in the application. I don't have it off the top of my head, but that's how it's defined.
All right, the next update is kind of what I teased initially about 988. So this is an exciting new update for 988. Though 988, for those of you who don't know, is something that we also talk about quite a bit when we talk about expanding what public safety looks like. We're making sure that we have the right types of responders and the right types of responses for the crisis that occur. One of the things that's really important to our district council is making sure we have appropriate mental health crisis response. 988 is a federal number that is kind of a response to making sure we have more mental health crisis response available. It is an easy number to remember, and you can call it when you are in mental health crisis or when you see someone else or a family member who's experiencing mental health crisis. The problem that 988 had before was it was not geo-routed. So if your phone number was like a Wisconsin phone number, you would be routed to a 988 call center in Wisconsin, which if you're in crisis, is not the most ideal. Obviously, they don't have the right connections to keep you, to help you follow your safety plan. They recently just started geo-routing, which means your phone will ping the nearest cell phone tower and you'll be directed to the 988 call center that's nearest to you. In Chicago, there are two different community organizations that do that, NAMI Chicago and C4. I will mention it's only right now for T-Mobile and Verizon customers, but they're moving to AT&T is going to be doing this soon as well. But this is an exciting new update for 988, and we finally feel like it's ready to start making sure people know about the 988 number so they can be connected to the right people. Next, as always, we just wanted to list some of the community engagement and important meetings we had this month. We always are busy talking to community members and leaders to make sure we're in touch with what's going on. I want to highlight actually two things. One was this 46 Ward Outreach Picnic that I went to today. I will say it was a highlight of my week. It was for folks who are living underneath the viaducts over by Wilson area and the lake. And it was just, there were people from Tapestry who are handing out Narcan and other tools that they might need. And so there was clothing that was being delivered. There was food for people, and it was sponsored by Alderwoman Clay's office. Two things that really stuck out to me. One was I met a man named DJ E who was awesome, and he was so excited to have our cards, and he said he would help pass them out to a lot of people that he knew. So it's just having those partners in the community, I think is a huge advantage to us. And as a thank you to him for helping us out, I told him I would promote his event. He is a DJ, and he's going to be at Daily Plaza on October 1st. And everyone should go in here and play, because it sounds like he plays some fun house music. The Daily Plaza, yeah. And then another conversation I had was with another woman who has wanted to use Threshold's living room. They came and spoke at our meeting last month, I believe. And just as a quick overview, Threshold has a living room that's 24/7. It's a place where people can go, and if they're in crisis or needing just a quiet place to be, it's a spot for them to go and kind of decompress and get ready to go back out in the community. She had a really important, interesting feedback that she gave me, is that she is on how she lives under the viaduct. It's really hard for her to get to the spot and to get back to from there. So something like having bus cards available is something that she was making ways to make sure that people can get to and from the living room is an important thing for us as a district council to think about for the community. But I wanted to highlight that so that people knew about it. It was a very cool event.
It was like a man.
I forgot. Then the next thing that we always do, as we always talk about, community groups are a really important part of what keeps community safe. Having activities and ways for neighbors to connect and be part of their community is such an important thing that helps build public safety. So we like to make sure there's time for anyone who's involved with any community groups who wants to shout out something that is going on or that their group is doing.
Apple Fest.
Apple Fest.
Apple Fest.
When is it?
Yes, but I think it's the 5th to the 6th of October.
Okay, and it's in Lincoln Square, right?
The sixth.
So no, I'm actually at large representative for the heart of Lincoln Square. Community Association.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's Mike Hughes with Heart of Lincoln Square, and reminding us that there's Apple Fest, which is it's in Lincoln Square, right? It's in like it is October 5th and October 6th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So hope you guys get to go out and enjoy that, and hope we have weather like today for that as well. Any other announcements that
I just want to recognize a few people who are here in the room, and we are joined by Joy Talbert Nelson, who is a assistant Cook County State's Attorney who's joined us on panels before and helps lead the Community Justice Center, which is a neighborhood office from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. So thank you so much for being here with us. We've got Sergeant Dean Angelo, our 19th District Staff Sergeant. Thank you for being here. You brought an officer with you. Thank you for being here. I don't know your name. Would you want to introduce yourself real quick?
So, Williams, 19th District Attorney's Office.
Thank you, Officer Williams, for being here. We really appreciate it. We've got Isaac Carposo, who is the Director of Policy and Public Safety for 44th Ward, Alderman Bennett Lawson's office. Thank you, Isaac, for being here. And we've got John McCarthy, Beat Facilitator for Beat 1925. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah, in the 19th District. And we've got
Staff.
and Ann Williams. Thank you so much for being here, Anna. And Ann Williams continues to work with me and us on reforming state open meetings laws so that the three of us, at least two of us, could talk to each other outside of a meeting noticed 48 hours in advance in person about doing district council work. The Open Meetings Act is a very important transparency tool in the state of Illinois. It breaks down a little bit when applied to our body, and we are a community outreach vehicle and want to be able to do that more effectively. So thank you to Representative Williams for helping us with that.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, and as we've been doing for the past few months, we wanted to give you an update on our community partnership plan. For those new faces that are joining us tonight, we solicited ideas from the community to help solve issues regarding crime, robberies, and burglaries and carjacking specifically within the 19th district. So we wanted to talk to you, the community, understand what we can do, what we can help push forward to help address some of these issues that we had been facing, and we came up with a list of 43 goals, and we promised to the community to update you guys every month on how we're doing. So that is our time now to update you. Specifically, last month we had 18 in progress, currently still 18. And actually, I went over the first row. As you can see, we've grown by one task. One of the things that we wanted to mention to you is that when we finish a task, that doesn't mean it's just completely over. One of the things is we have to follow up on that. A good example is Jenny's going to lay that out here soon. But there are just natural follow-ups to some of these goals, and we will be following these through as long as we can. So just know that this list will grow, and that is why the number is increasing. In progress, we still have 18. Ongoing, still 7. As you can see, we've completed 2 more goals. We'll talk through a couple of those here in just a second. And then the total in progress or ongoing is 31. So you can see that we have not started 12 of them. We are trying to make headway on some of these that are ongoing because there's a lot on the list. But of course, if you have any questions or any updates specifically on one of these goals, let us know. And as always, love to plug our website, 19district.com. We have districtcouncil.com. Thank you. We have our resource portal that has these goals listed out for everyone to see and with our current progress. Question.
Yeah, we differentiate what's in progress and what's ongoing.
Yes, so ongoing, one of the goals is to hand out name tags to all those who attend our meetings. So that's not going to end after one meeting. So that's an ongoing goal. An in progress goal means that we're working towards that goal, but not yet completed. So it's kind of on its way. So ongoing just means it's probably going to be throughout the lifetime of our tenure here. So we'll now go into a couple of specific items, and Jenny will start.
Speaking of the name tags, they're there so that you can introduce yourself. So we really believe in community. So please take a minute to introduce yourself to somebody else yeah, who's sitting at your table. Speaking of believing in community, one of the things that we heard from when we had our community engagement meetings was that a lot of the neighborhood associations were kind of operating independently of one another, and there was no networking. The leaders really didn't know who each other were. And there was an interest for them to get together and to meet one another and hear what each other are doing. So we had that gathering last week. It was really successful. We had 10 different neighborhood groups represented there. The people who attended were all in the leadership roles of their association and had very positive feedback to share and they said a lot of them said they came in not sure what to think, but they left feeling really reinvigorated to go out there and do new things in their community groups. This is where we decided to add another goal to it. One of the things that came out of this is we had this meeting. Now what? They really wanted to set up a Slack group between them so that they can communicate with one another and have more opportunities to just continue their networking, continue to collaborate. So our next goal is to help them set up that Slack group and make sure it gets completed. That's my one.
Yeah.
No, that's not. That's not what I meant.
Oh. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank Mike for coming in.
You made it a lot of fun,
Oh, thank you.
very useful, a lot of fun. People enjoyed, nobody left early, that's pretty significant.
Thank you.
That's true.
Thank you. I think it was a fun time. It was good for everyone to kind of meet and chat. And yeah, thank you, Mike, for representing Holes there, for helping plan it. It was a successful evening. Another call out we wanted to talk about are one of the things that we promised to do is to provide updates on different progress towards implementing and expanding alternative emergency response models. The CARE team, for those of you who, again, have been to all of our meetings know, is a team that consisted previously of CPD, a mental health clinician from CDPH, Chicago Department of Public Health, and an EMT worker from the Chicago Fire Department. This is brand new, like hot off the presses just today, the mayor announced. Starting September 27th, which is Friday, I believe, those two agencies will be rolling off. CPD and CFD will be rolling off the CARE team, and the CARE team now will be consisting of a paramedic from the Department of Public Health, as well as a mental health clinician from the Department of Public Health. The reason they moved to a EMT from the department is because of contractual issues that they were running into with different breaks and things, making it really hard for them to have to operate the CARE van consistently throughout the hours. As we've talked about, we are very lucky to have this CARE van. We are one of the districts where it's piloted in, one of 5 districts across the city. However, it needs to expand across the city and it needs to expand in the hours that it operates. Right now, it only operates from 10:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. So we know that is not when all the mental health crises occurred. Just a couple of things I wanted to talk about, to share as we were talking about this CARE team transition. There was a 2-week period where the new clinician, where the new the new EMTs shadowed the CFD EMTs on the CARE van. So that was a nice way to transition the team. And we are going to continue, and I know to make sure that the nice thing about having the officer on that CARE team was that it created a connection between the CARE team and the department. So I think it's a good move to have them roll off, but I think making sure that collaboration stays intact is important too, because maintaining those relationships will be important for a successful transition between those two teams. And also, just as far, another thing that we talked about is just not only thinking about mental health alternative response, but what else would go into a more robust alternative response system. One of the things that that the district councils get to do is create proposals that we share with the other district councils, and we vote on to move forward as for the commission to move forward on. I put together, I'll say, and actually we all did, because they supported it as well. We all supported it. A proposal that will have the commission begin having discussions around what alternative response could look like in Chicago. There are many other cities across the country who are much further along with this alternative crisis, these ideas. So we're just asking the commission to start having the conversations, bringing the right people to the table, because we want to do it in a way that's thoughtful and responsible and not, just throwing ideas out, but really getting all parties who are engaged in what this could look like together. So we put this together. We're going to now our work is to lobby almost the other district council members to make sure that this becomes a commission priority and recommendation that they could move forward with.
I just want to make a comment for the new faces in the room. One of the reasons we're pushing so hard for alternative response models and specifically mental health is because we've heard directly from Commander Chisani here in the 19th that police officers should not be responding to mental health crisis calls. Who here receives our newsletters by chance? We highlighted that specifically in the newsletter because we had him come and present at our last meeting in August. And we thought that was a really powerful statement. And the reason we want to advocate for these alternative response models is so that our police officers can focus more on serious and violent crime and building trust with the community, because we feel like there are more appropriate response agencies and nonprofits in the city that can address these types of crises. So I just wanted to put that out there so that you know exactly why we're pushing for these things so hard.
Skip the next.
Okay.
We can just skip these next two just move to the discussion so we can get to the important, well, this is all important, but we want to hear your feedback as well and make sure we get to talking about the
Be online.
budget.
And reminder, these are always posted online. So look at our website, 19thdistrictcouncil.com. I got to write that down, right? Okay. Okay. So we wanted to have a conversation with you, the community, to understand your input and your priorities when it comes to the CPD's budget. We wanted to talk about the process in which you can provide that input. We've obviously worked with the CCPSA, again, the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. That is the overall department in which district councils serve and which the 7 commissioners that Sam talked about also operate within. Today, we wanted to provide the purpose and level set on how we can provide our input. We also wanted to talk about the CPD budget today overall. What are those major components? We also want to talk about the commissioners, the 7 commissioners that Sam spoke to, what their recommendations have been in the past. And then obviously want to solicit your feedback and understand what your priorities are. We very much want to make this as interactive and engaging as possible. I know that CPD budget could be maybe not the most exciting topic, but we think it's very, very important to get your feedback and know that tonight is not going to be the only time that you can give that feedback. We will be sending a newsletter to request that feedback, but today it is important for you to provide it to us so that we can appropriately go to our meeting on Saturday and also communicate some of these important topics that you are going to highlight. So the commissioners, they have the ability and the powers and duties before a city council vote on the annual budget. Before the city council votes on the annual budget, they can review and, if warranted, recommend changes to the proposed CPD budget appropriation. So this is our chance at the hyper-local level to provide our commissioners with what our priorities are. Today's goal is so that you can find, you can gain an idea of what the process is like in terms of how is it formed, what are the meetings that are held, how can I give input, and then obviously, as I mentioned already, give you an opportunity to provide that input to us. Specifically, the commissioners are going to receive community input from us, the district councilors, and also from experts on the subject. Specifically, the budget process in June and August, just one second. In June and August, we had a kickoff with the city had a kickoff with their departments. And then in August through September, they created budget forecasts. They had budget community forums talking about balancing the budget. In September, the mayor is supposed to submit the budget recommendation to city council. Just a note that has not happened yet. But once that does happen, what we have highlighted in red, and this is a meeting that we held with other district councilors last year, but we are going to invite Jeffrey Cubbage from the Better Government Association, a subject matter expert, to come speak with us and answer any questions on the specific line items of the CPD budget when the 2025 proposed budget comes to light. Today, we're gonna look at it from a very high level. We are not experts ourselves, but we want to highlight what we do know, so that you can become more informed on what your priorities may or may not be. And then in October, December, there's gonna be a committee on the budget specifically. They're gonna hold budget hearings. And then the city council is going to move to approve the budget by December 31st. In January, the annual appropriations ordinance goes into effect. That starts January 1st.
All right, so what's in the CPD budget? What does it entail exactly? I want to emphasize, I am not a budget expert, and this is a high-level overview. So if you have more granular questions, I'm happy to take them and get back to you. And that event we mentioned with Jeffrey Cubbage, he actually is an expert on the line items and puts out like detailed reports from the BGA every year on every city department's proposed budget. This is a presentation that was helpfully prepared by the CCPSA staff to give just a general overview, but it was more information than I did. So in CPD, for 2024, this is the current year that we're in. The CPD budget, as you can see, is almost $2 billion. It's less than $2 million, less than $2 billion. In 2024, that was an increase from the year before of about $91 million in 2023. So there was a 5% increase from 23 to 24 in the CPD budget. And to give a sense of the whole, the full city of Chicago budget is about $16.6 billion. So CPD alone takes up $2 billion of that budget. To break it down per person, the 2024 budget, which is about $2 billion, is about $736 of spending per Chicagoan. That's an increase from the year before, which was about $708 per resident. One way to help break down what does that big $2 billion number look like, you'll notice this does not quite add up to the $2 billion, but it's three major categories within the budget. Personnel is the vast majority of the budget. It's about 2/3, well, it's more than 2/3 of the budget. There's about 14,000 people who are employed by the Chicago Police Department. All those people gotta get paid. It's hopefully a good job. And that's the largest line item in the budget. We'll break that down a little further in a minute.
14,000.
14,000 total in the department.
11,000.
11,000, about 11,000 in the Bureau of Patrol, which we'll get to in a minute.
2,000 are not civilians because support workers.
There are other departments there are other bureaus within the department, and on the next slides will break down what those different bureaus are. So personnel cost services are obviously the lion's share of the CPD budget. Legal costs you see here was budgeted at $105 million. It's also sometimes labeled as financial purposes as specified in budgetary speak. This was no change from 2023's budget. It includes the payment of legal judgments, so police misconduct lawsuits and judgments. Also the expenses for outside counsel to work up those cases and try them, and trial costs for experts. It also includes some employee injury payments. The contractual services, about $12 million, which is 0.6% of the total budget. That was up by about 50% from the year before. It was historically supplemented with grant funds. It includes rental and maintenance funds for data processing, office automation, and data communication hardware, and also third-party agreements with the CPD.
Question.
Yes.
Personnel include pension.
It does not include pensions. That is a separate item that is not part of this budget. So that is a big line item, supplement.
There are parts of that go to CPD that are not in the CPD budget. For example, I think a lot of their equipment and cars is not part of this almost $2 billion.
Yeah.
And moving to this next slide, this is the one that I find more illuminating, which is all of the major bureaus within CPD and the percentage of spending that they have, both and in absolute dollars and in percent. So we were mentioning earlier, also this figure also doesn't quite add up to the $2 billion. It adds up to a little bit more than $2 billion for the 2024 budget. My understanding from the staffer who put this together is that there are some other sources of funding that are outside of the CPD budget that will go into some of these offices or bureaus within CPD, but this also includes, I think all or almost all of that $2 billion CPD budget. As you can see in bold here, the Bureau of Patrol is the largest line item breakdown within the CPD budget. It takes up more than 2/3 of the CPD budget, or just about 2/3, $1.4 billion in 2024 alone. And that's, as we mentioned before, because the Bureau of Patrol is by far the largest part of CPD. Those are your beat officers. They're the officers who are out in squad cars, patrolling beats. They're at the local police station, for us at 850 West Addison. And personnel-wise, the figures that I have here is that there are a little bit more than 14,000 budgeted full-time CPD positions in 2024. About 76% of them are patrol. And now let's go into a little bit more about what each of these offices does. So the Office of the Superintendent makes up about 6.5% of the budget, 6.4%. The Office of the Superintendent obviously houses the Office of Superintendent Larry Snelling. They're responsible for the organization, promotion, and disciplinary action of all department members. The Office of Superintendent administers legal and legislative matters and various labor agreements, improves the department's response to domestic violence, works with residents through community policing, and disseminates information to the public through the news media. This office also includes the CAPS program, for which we had a couple of representatives in the 19th district here, prime victim and domestic violence advocates, and also language access coordinators, those who help who are non-English speakers access CPD services. Next, we have the Office of the First Deputy. This office takes up 0.4% of the budget in 2024. They work on special assignments for other departments, which includes like investigators for other departments. If CPD details certain officers to the Department of Finance to investigate something, that's part of this budget. They also coordinate and unify efforts of all bureaus to maximize the potential use of department resources. Office of the First Deputy does a lot of operational work within the department. And they are also in charge of the governmental security unit. So if you see the mayor with a detail of police officers, that comes from this part of the budget. The next is the Bureau of Patrol, which, as I mentioned, takes up the lion's share of the budget and personnel in CPD. They include district officers, sergeants, and lieutenants, training officers, detention aides, and area detectives. There's also a Bureau of Detectives, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the area detectives fall under the Bureau of Patrol. The figures I have here are that there are 1,190 full-time employees that include in the area detectives division, which includes detectives, lieutenants, and sergeants, all dedicated to the areas. Patrol is also responsible for general field operations, including the protection of life and property, apprehension of criminals, problem solving to address chronic crime and disorder problems, and enforcing traffic laws and city ordinances. Next, there is the Bureau of Detectives, which it includes 3.5% of the CPD budget. That was $74 million in this year's budget. It includes forensic services like evidence technician, the fugitive section, youth investigations, major accidents, financial crimes, and arson. The largest unit in this bureau is the forensic services unit, which includes things like fingerprint examiners and firearms examiners. And that is the information I've got for Bureau of Detectives. Next is the Bureau of Counterterrorism, which takes up, as you can see, more than 10% of the CPD budget. For those who might be familiar, this was the bureau that Larry Snelling led before he was named superintendent of CPD. They work policing public transportation and CTA. They've got SWAT and bomb squad units, device gang and narcotics investigations. They're responsible for all targeted operations into both international and domestic criminal enterprises. And they coordinate intelligence resources to ensure that the city is protected from complex and coordinated terrorist attacks. This unit also includes the Marine and helicopter unit. So you might have heard that CPD has a few helicopters. I think we recently bought 2 in preparation for the DNC. And so there are pilots who are sworn officers who work the helicopter unit, which can help like stop police chases on the ground and actually monitor from the air. There's also a Marine unit for officers that patrol in Lake Michigan. They also have the K-9 unit and mounted patrol, bomb squad, and a traffic cycle. Next is the Bureau of Crime Control Strategies. This is sort of the data operations center for the department. It was only 1.6% of CPD's budget last year. Responsible for monitoring, assessing, and executing the department's various strategic operational plans. In addition, this department coordinates and directs activities which specifically relate to data collection, criminal justice research, and analysis and reporting. The strategic initiatives that are mentioned here include the CompStat unit. So CompStat is a data gathering operation that happens on a at least weekly basis to track how many crimes have been reported throughout the city, what kind of crimes have been reported, and there's CompStat reports that often you'll see in your alderman's newsletters, and we've got a link to those reports on our website as well. The field services section of the Bureau of Crime Control Strategies includes a lot of analyst positions, including data retrieval specialists and criminal history analysts. Records inquiry includes digital retrieval specialists and data entry operators. And this section also includes some portion of alternate response and court support. Next, we've got constitutional policing and reform. This takes 9% of the budget last year. They are responsible for training officers, for professional counseling. One of their big responsibilities is implementing the consent decree and being the hub of implementation for the federal consent decree that CPD is under. The research and development team develops all the policy for CPD, and I've actually met with members of the policy team in research and development, and they're really sharp folks who've been working really hard to turn out a lot of policies for CPD. They do audits and force review, and also have crisis intervention teams. The force review unit reviews and audits the tactical response reports that officers fill out after a use of force incident. This is part of the consent decree, that anytime there is an officer use of force, it needs to be reviewed by people within CPD. That's where this is housed. Yeah. And now I'll move to Jenny for the goal process unit for CPD.
Pause for any questions.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? I know that was a tremendous amount of information. Yes.
Well, that's it.
Go ahead.
Is there any way to determine how much money goes for detectives? Or is it pure on patrols, 68%? You don't have anything in subdivision or find a subdivision? I think we don't have enough detectives. I have experience that proves it.
So I don't have that information with me today. I'm sure there's a line item for detectives within the Bureau of Patrol, and then there's also the separate Bureau of Detectives Bureau, which has its own set of line item budgets within the department, but I don't have that breakdown beyond that today. At least the other one. So yes, there's Bureau of Detectives, but sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Bureau of Patrol also includes budgets for the area detectives. And I don't have the specific breakdown between the two with me today.
That would be a good thing
Yeah.
to note.
Yeah, so that would be a great comment to say that you'd like to see more money go towards the detectives. Hiring detectives.
Yeah. This is all going towards gathering your feedback on what the budget should prioritize. And so that would be a good example of something to ask the commission in its review to recommend prioritizing.
And that's also why we gave you your papers now in front of you instead of waiting for later. That way, if you have notes or things that you're thinking of as you're hearing us speak, write them down, but we're also always running over, but we are trying to keep these meetings an hour and a half. But we're going to give you time because we really want to make sure we hear from all of you. So there will be time also later to write this as well.
Got a second question from
Oh,
Jeff.
another question? Go ahead.
Yes, for a couple of years, the, police didn't have an updated agreement with the city. They finally got that in 2023, and there's a large amount of money in the 2024 budget for making up for that couple of years they didn't get that rate, okay? So there was a distortion in the press that, Mayor Johnson was you're gonna increase the budget, and when the police budget came out, it was higher in 2023. So reporters came out and said, wow, look, it's higher, we can't complain about Brandon Johnson. Well, it's higher because there was an amount of money in there that's a one-time only expense for a couple of years of payroll for the officers, okay, so that was a distortion. Prior to, the election, there were 1,000, two patrol officer positions that were unfilled. Thank you, Lori Lightfoot. Johnson was asked during the campaign, are you gonna fill those positions? He never answered the question. When he came up with the budget for 2024, 833 of those positions were eliminated, okay? So he actually did do a significant decrease in patrol officers authorized, okay? And you had people complaining all the time, and some of these meetings and other districts as well, about they're not responding enough to 911 calls. Well, that's because they're too patrol officers. So where in this process do we get the question of what about getting more patrol officers? Determining how many patrol officers we give our client.
It's a good question. I think the question to some is, where do we prioritize getting more patrol officers and determining if we need more patrol officers given the crime rate that we have? Is that accurate?
That's a lingering issue.
Yeah.
In 2023.
So I think that could be one of your comments to the commission on what to prioritize. What we just went over is patrol does make up 2/3 of the budget as is. One of the questions that we're hoping to answer with this workforce allocation study that we talked about earlier is, how are officers actually spending their time right now? How are they being deployed? Is there a more efficient way that we could deploy the officers that we have right now? And how many officers would be optimal given the crime that we have, where the crime is happening, and when the crime is happening?
Well, the data shows over time that the number of 911 calls with the required officer has gone up, and the time has gotten longer. So there's no question that the response time is getting worse. And that's not debatable.
Well, that's actually a good segue into this next section, because the CCPSA, in writing a report in the last 2 years, since it's existed, has come up with its own recommendations and is focused on certain items that include 911 response time. So I want to send it over to Jenny to go over what those recommendations have been in years past, so you can see what the CCPSA has considered thus far.
This thing is written up in much detail by Paul Vallis. It's on a website where it came out with several.
Thank you.
So I hadn't done this.
I didn't figure. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we want to so we gave you like a very opposite of granular.
High level.
Thank you. Overview of like what the CPD kind of looks like. Now we're going into the CCPSA's budget review and recommendations. This is more a values statement on where, not like the dollar amount, but how the money that CPD receives should be spent. They came up, like we mentioned, there was 2 years of recommendations. The first year, they came up with the first 4 recommendations. And then the second year, 2024, they kept the first 4 recommendations and added 5, 6, and 7. But instead of reading them all to you right now, I'm just gonna go through them one by one. Workforce allocation study is one area that they highlighted. The first year, they really just were asking for the police to publish quarterly reports on beat integrity, response times, unity of command, and span of control. That's around making sure that there's one sergeant to supervises the same number of officers. In the consent decree, they say it should be 1 sergeant to 10 officers. And that's really important to make sure that you have the same boss who can then, you have the same set of expectations. And there is just an understanding. Also, if you're struggling, your boss can see that over time that you're struggling and be able to help in those areas. So maintaining a unity of command and span of control is very important and something that we are not doing as a department yet. Also report on the number of sworn officers working in centralized units and the amount of overtime that officers are working. The next year, instead of asking for those granular reports or the specific reports, they were asking just for the complete comprehensive workforce allocation study to be completed so that we can have a data-driven strategy for allocating our resources in the department.
The overtime, the last 2 or 4 years, the amount of money spent on overtime is like quadruple.
Yeah.
Huge number.
Overtime is or that there needs to be a study done so we can understand where patrol officers are being used and to make sure that we have enough officers doing officer duties out on the streets and not in other places within the department, which is part of the civilization recommendation that the CCPSA makes, and we will talk about in a moment. Community policing is another area that the CCPSA recommended they spend time thinking about. Clearly defining and articulating a comprehensive community policing strategy and rolling out citywide. Right now we have a CAPS program. A different meeting of ours several months ago, we had someone from Chicago Neighborhood Policing Initiative come out and speak about another community policing program that happens in some districts, not in the 19th, but making sure that we have a citywide comprehensive strategy and really understand what is community policing. I think that's a word people use and don't always understand what that really means. Also making sure that community policing department is fully staffed with appropriate administrative, supervisory, and civilian positions. It's something actually that the consent decree also speaks to, that the entire CPD should all be consisting of community policing. All officers should practice community policing. And also we should measure the effectiveness of our community policing programs by talking to community members and hearing about their interactions with the police. Obviously, we've talked about this before. In order to create real safe communities, we need to make sure that there are good relationships between community and CPD, and that goes both ways to improve public safety. I know I'm trying to move through these as quickly as I possibly can. Training and leadership development, making sure that we have better, more transparent information on what training looks like, the number of officers that participate, the types and the amounts of training, the number of instructors, the leadership training stats. Something else I just want to highlight that when I was talking to police officers in the 19th district, they also echoed the importance of making sure that their training is relevant, that it feels like it's not something that they have to go to, but something that they really feel that they can take with them and make them better police officers. So really looking at what our training looks like for officers. Legal judgments, basically that means they're asking to develop a risk assessment to plan on how to reduce repeated offenses or officers who are repeat offenders, and making sure that they have appropriate training and supervision plans, and also reviewing misconduct, use of force investigations, so we can understand what's driving the settlement.
Specifically to this legal judgment, why is there not like malpractice insurance that medical providers have, so that all of this is not part of the city CPD budget, and instead they're paying for malpractice insurance because it's malpractice basically from a police point of view? Why doesn't that happen?
That is a great question. We have a former commissioner, Isaac. Did you hear the question?
Yeah, malpractice.
Yeah, did you? Isaac was a former commissioner who was helping to write some of these documents. Do you have anything to add to answer that question?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, kind of back about a year and a half ago, but I believe it may have been an issue with the union, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
I recommend writing it down. We'll try and get that information for you.
Thank you.
Related to that, is there information from PSA that you guys can put on the website that shows trends in terms of the legal judgment, say over the past, I don't know, 5-10 years? So we can see what has been happening historically in terms of legal judgments. As a
Yeah.
percentage also of the overall budget, I think that's.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I don't believe the CCPSA has done anything like that. I do know that, that COPA has a unit that's supposed to be looking into trends and help provide feedback on some of that. We can look more into what that.
Yeah, we'll
It always
definitely.
makes good news. I don't know if it's distorted in terms of overall.
Right. No, that's a great question. And one of the things that we did learn from our meeting last year with Jeffrey Cubbage is that there is a line item specifically for that in the CPD budget, but we often go over that. So the overages is something that we can expect, which is not a fair use of our money. So that is something that I know that there could be trend information out there, but as Jenny said, it seems to be that something is on the COPA's line item. So we can look into that. I think we'll take, yeah, we've written it down and we'll report back on that. And again, I know we sound like a broken record, but please write these things down because this is going to the CCPSA, and we want to make sure that these are priorities for you.
Okay. Next slide is the improving infrastructure or wellness. A bunch of the commissioners took tours of a lot of the actual facilities, and were shocked by in what disrepair a lot of those places were in. Specifically, they saw quiet rooms that had stuff all over it, that weren't a place that you would want to go and decompress after a hard day of work. So making sure that we have adequate infrastructure and equipment for the break rooms and the quiet rooms, that they're clean, that the lighting is appropriate, that there's nursing rooms for mothers. A lot of them were using the quiet rooms, which they should have their own spot to go and do that in privacy. As well as I've heard, making sure that the holding facilities are up to standard as well. Next one is making sure that we have high quality data that we're collecting and able to store that and analyze it in appropriate ways. And then the last area of recommendation that I want to make sure we touch on is civilianization. So this is something that we have spoken about at our meetings as well. The Chicago Police Department has a very, very low percentage of civilians as part of the department compared to other major cities across the country. We have something around a 5 to 6% civilianization rate compared to other cities that have between 20 to 30% civilianization rate. So that's another hope that we have for the workforce allocation study, is to understand where we're using officers in positions that that civilians could fill, and then be able to send them out on beats where they belong, and being able to appropriately respond to crime that happens in communities. We actually I saw lots of hands go up about who gets our newsletters. I hope you also read them because they're full of good information. And we did include an article that was published recently about civilianization efforts in Chicago, and kind of talking about the mayor in the last budget increased 400 civilian positions within the department, but it has been very, very slow to hire those positions. And the article kind of talks about why that is, and it's really not the system is just a slow system, the way we have it put together, but it is something that's important that we look into. Working with, they also wanted to make sure that they work with the city to have capacity for mental health clinician response when appropriate. That was a recommendation from the CCPSA. So.
Okay, so now it's time for you to give us feedback, and we want to give you an appropriate amount of time. We know it's late already. We're apologies on that again. But we wanted to just give you an idea of how our priorities have overlap with the CCPSA's recommendation. These are also great topics to keep in mind as you think about what your priorities can be, because we want to obviously have the 19th district represent what you want. As you can see, we have a high amount of overlaps with what we've talked about a lot tonight: the workforce allocation, community policing, training and leadership development, and civilianization. The CCPSA also had items such as legal judgments, infrastructure and wellness, data analytics technology. We've touched on these, but not necessarily focused on them as much as the CCPSA. Things that we have focused on, and you've heard us speak on, is implementing the consent decree. There is a lot of overlap with some of these items already on here, but that is very important for us. So whether there needs to be more budget appropriated to that. Mental health and alternative crisis response, we spoke of that, we speak to that continuously. And then another item that we've talked about is community violence interruption. You're going to have two options to provide input today. You have hard copies that should be in front of you. We're also going to have a QR code that you can scan. There are some, yeah, I was gonna get that in a second. There are QR codes that you can scan that are available. We'll put it up on the screen. But first, I just want to give you an idea of what the question that you're going to be answering is. And it is, what should the CCPA Commission address when recommending changes to the police budget? So we want to give everybody appropriate amount of time. Here is the QR code. Again, if your thumbs are faster than your wrist, feel free to take a QR code. Good old fashioned writing is also welcome as well. Yeah.
We also heard today that the 22nd district has already put in 21 comments, and there are more than that many people here. So if all of you do it, we will be the 22nd district, which I would like to do. So please share your feedback. And then we want to give a few minutes for people to say anything out loud to us that might inform our thoughts too. Also on the survey, it asks you to name what district you're in. That would be really helpful for us, because then any feedback that you give would also be given to us as well.
When do they need the feedback by?
Is it Saturday? By Saturday.
By Saturday.
This said,
This Saturday.
well, we were talking about other things, I did find out that there are 1,100 detectives.
Okay.
Given some fluctuation, they're making an average with benefits, approximately $145,000.
Okay.
With benefits only. So that's some.
Okay.
So, you know, sometimes.
If it's, yeah.
Yeah. So that is not much, in my perception of what should happen with detectives out there.
Let them know.
Okay, and I had two experiences, both big steps as a business person, that I could not get a call back from the detective side. Because from general thinking that there were other more important things.
So that's
Thank you for the feedback.
related to what you're talking about. I read in your report, the PowerPoint that, compared to other cities, comparable cities, our detective close rate is substantially lower. And I don't know why. I don't, you know, I think that, you know, that's, I don't know if that's a budget issue or if there's other issues with that, but.
Yeah, so one small workforce allocation study that I think that happened within the department was they rearranged how the homicide detectives were being deployed and kind of their schedule. And since that shift, the number of cases that has been closed has gone up quite a bit. So that's specifically for homicide detectives. I'm not sure why they're not making that shift department wide, but that did make a big difference in their closure rate.
How much is quite a bit?
I'd have to look.
We'd have to look, but the change
I think-
specifically was that detectives stay on the same case for at least a 5 or 6 week period, whereas before they were handing cases off from detective to detective, which to me was a very big shock, and glad that they made that change.
2024, they added a number of detectives. Food division, 200.
Don't remember how many yet.
We figured them out.
Right.
And also, I heard, the detective talk at a CCPSA giving a 20-minute speech about, giving the new detective series, how they're changing, how the detective experience is working. I asked her, does she go out and get talks to, just the council and she's actually got to follow up. And that would be a very interesting thing for you to hear.
Yep, that's a great suggestion. We had another question behind.
This
Yes,
year,
go
24, 24, yeah.
Hey.
Oh, yeah, yes, that was one grand, yeah, okay, but you got, what it is, 23 instead.
Thank you.
We had one more question behind. Yeah. Yeah.
That data is actually. It's very, very, like not being on time. But I correlated, I have all that.
Please send that to us. Yeah, if you could refer us to that, the point is that ask about legal trends and misconduct lawsuits and the money is spent towards that. That is a line item in the consent decree, or paragraph, I should say. And they will be sent that to over to us so we can relay that information back.
They like very well. But like a lot of skipped it. It didn't know what.
Got it.
Well, that's, it would be great to have that stuff on the districts.
Yeah,
Because when we think of the district council as a place to go for that type of information, and I don't want to have to turn to a research project every time you're trying, you know what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're trying to make more accessible. One of I want to take this opportunity to plug our website. We have a lot of resource cards. There's a resource portal at the top right. Very much a work in progress. So yeah, I think that's a great addition to the list that we can provide as a liaison opportunity. Yeah. One more question. Yeah.
This is on retail theft. I don't really know how to say it in my comments other than just allocate resources for dealing with retail theft because I'm concerned about the state of the city and the loss of downtown traffic and how it's affecting businesses all over the city. I don't want to be like San Francisco where they almost have no drugstores, or they have everything, hidden behind locked shelves.
Right.
I don't know, is that a fee issue? Is that a data?
Yeah, I think you could just say for like more tech teams who are specifically addressing retail theft.
Tactical teams.
Yeah.
So
And a lot of this, I won't be able to tell you exactly what the line item in the budget should be for dealing with that, but I look at budgets and I think a lot of people look at budgets as statements of values. What is it that you value? What is it that you really want to focus on? And so if the feedback from here is I value spotlighting and reducing retail theft, it's their job, it's CPD's job and the budgeteer's job to figure out where in the budget it should go to make sure that that is prioritized. But our value and our feedback can be prioritize this, make it better.
yeah, and I will say that's another reason why Jenny spoke to prioritizing community input when the workforce allocation study is going to be launched, because what we value is a lot of these items that should be included in that workforce allocation study as well. So to Sam's point, bring these to values and we can in parallel ask for them in the budget as well as the workforce allocation study. We have a question over here.
How fun is it? If we're deciding the CCTV budget, this part, I would love to see what the CCTV budget, I would do that. But we need more officers. You guys don't want to look like the 25th district, I'll tell you that right now. If I try calling them district, it's impossible. It's impossible. I'm here for the Algonquin state. And now it's hitting us. So, great job. So, we need more officers. If you guys want to be working at the kind of budget center, you can say whoever wants to send it to the but I'm tired of the kind of I'm tired of our office getting attacked constantly. It is infuriating when I can't even get somebody to come ticket somebody who's parking on the sidewalk because they're too busy to take care of retail theft. Because they're $1,000. I think they need to decrease that to like $10.
You're in this area now, right?
Pardon? I am considering.
Hey,
But my family lives in the 25th district.
would you mind if I just, you know, just a little bit, you know, I respected you so much 4 months ago. When you told me and other people, I don't know how we were, then, but you know, that we don't have civilians like other much more successful cities that have a higher number of civilians on enforcement. Do exactly what this young lady that said. You know, so I think it's gonna monitor, landlord and tenant
Yeah.
relationships. Assist with planning, which clearly is shown in the budget. Why don't we insist on that? Don't ask for it. Insist upon it. Take a risk. Because we need that, because other cities are doing much better than we are. My God, that's 4 months ago, we should jam it up to them. And that's good evidence.
Are you talking about specifically civilization, which we highlighted tonight?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we've been advocating for since our inception. And honestly, where we keep talking about advocating for alternative solutions so that our officers can focus on serious and violent crime. Because if it is a matter of being allocated poorly, we need to correct that so that they can focus on the things that we care about. We shouldn't have our officers taking care of parking violations. We shouldn't call 911 for an officer to attend to a parking violation in front of a fire hydrant. That could be done by 311 or the Department of Revenue. That is just one small example of how we can rework it.
Results. So you went to the commissioner and you told them that's one of our most important goals. Period. What's going on?
So I hear you on wanting results. I do. And we are trying to give as much feedback as we can, but I also want to be very clear that we can't overpromise.
And what?
Overpromise. What we can do is give feedback to the commission. The commission itself has no budgetary authority. Their only authority is to review and recommend changes to the budget. It is the city council that has the authority over the budget. So just wanting to direct those efforts in the right, to the right people.
What kind of evidence are you giving them? Compare it to New York and LA for what? Houston also?
So I think they're aware of that evidence, but what we
I'm
can
asking
give them.
if you- I'm asking if you do it. You give them evidence like that. Tell them we're being embarrassed by Houston.
So,
New York,
yeah, commissioners are aware of that, and it's what we really can bring is bringing this information to the community so that we as a community can demand these things and can ask, like, say that this is what we expect of our department, this is what we expect of our elected officials. We want to see these changes happen. We are just 3 community members trying to do our best and make sure that people know what's out there. We are mad about this too. This is why we ran for this, is so that we can get people to get behind these ideas, to understand how we can make things better. Because we also I've got 3 kids that grow up in this community. I want it to be safe for them, for their friends. I want it to be safe for all kids in Chicago. So I think that this is what we are doing by bringing community to these meetings. We are at 8:05. Mary, one last thing, and then I hope everyone is able to write as I think this is a good discussion, and I'm really glad we're able to have this as a community. I thank everyone for participating. I will say I am more than happy to continue this discussion with anyone later on, but I also want people to keep showing up to our meetings. And so I want to make sure we're ending at a reasonable time. Mary, but
I will
please.
be quick. This is a comment and maybe something for you all to reflect on. I've been coming to these meetings for many months. You just now again demonstrated not only your expertise and your knowledge and ability to share that in translatable language that we can understand, but also your passion. So I personally want to thank you all. And I think after more than a year now, been on the district council, I'm just wondering where you are with what you feel your impact has been, especially when you're looking at this budget and you've done so much learning to understand what the issues are and how you might all feel about your own impact as a district council.
Yeah.
That is a great question. We have talked about our December meeting being like a fun cookie exchange perhaps. And I kind of recap of getting community feedback, but I think I would like to reflect on that a little bit more than just
Yes.
right then being able to speak on that right now, but it has been a wonderful experience, I will say overall, and I feel very, and I think we can all we feel very, very grateful to be able to be in the community, having these conversations with all of you guys, and talking about these things and learning about these things, because the other thing that we've said from the beginning is we are not the experts, we are bringing experts to the community. We are trying to bring knowledge to community and bring people together. So I have learned a tremendous amount, I will say, and I'm very grateful to be doing this.
I will echo what Jenny said, but Mike, I appreciate you bringing this up and your frustration. As Jenny mentioned, she's frustrated. I'm frustrated too. And to talk about impact, I think not only am I so grateful and like proud to be doing this work and proud of what we've done, but I'm equally frustrated on how slow things are moving for me. And because I can spotlight some of these issues and we can only do so much. Again, Sam noted this, that we're community members. We don't have hard powers. We're trying to activate the powers that we do have. But that's also to say we're investigating other forms that we can take action. One thing that I'm currently working on and just to illuminate is just understanding how we can influence policy and legislation within city council. Can we take those on as district councilors, and can we be the squeaky wheel, the pestering annoyance for city council to keep these moving? And that's why we feel strongly about the workforce allocation study. We went up to Alderman Matt Martin, and we are lucky enough that he is an ally and a supporter of our work, and he is the person that put that ordinance into city council. So that's a great show of how our work has already taken life. And quickly to answer your question about the comparison to other major cities, this is on our website for the workforce allocation study. And what this is showing is the civilian rate for Chicago compared to other US major cities. We're at 5%, New York's at 30% civilians. Houston, on the lowest on this chart, is 17%, right? So we're a third of the lowest on the major cities. We want to be better. We want to advocate for this to change. And we are seeing this slowly trickle to change, but it's not fast enough for at least my personal preference.
Short sentence, if I could.
One short one.
Stand that mayor and superintendent Snelling have an agreement that close to 400 is allocated for 2025, but only 53 have gone to be interviewed or whatever, and that's about a month old. And
Yeah, and Jenny touched on that earlier, that the hiring process is what's slowing that down. So there are 400 positions to be filled. Taking your number 53 have only been filled, so that is still a lot of work to do. Jenny has actually reached out to the city to understand what that holdup is. We can go back and ask again, but she's identified that issue. Civilians, yes. So that's where I mentioned, we can be the pestering annoyance, squeaky wheel. That's our job, and we want to do that for you. And that's why it's important for you to write down on these forms what you want, because we have a vision, but we also want to ensure that we're taking everybody's comments, right? We don't want our police officers responding to parking violations when they should be responding to serious crime, right? And so that's what we take, and that's what we're trying to activate the levers that we have available to us.
They made more rules for our police officers, not to do that.
So, and just one last thing to address your comment, Mike, as a reminder, we are paid $500 a month to do this job. It's a 20-hour a month supposed to be job. Obviously, we are putting way more time into that, but we have to remember, again, we are trying to be as efficient and effective as we can, but not only are we trying to do this, we're also trying to set up what this never before done body is doing. So it's actually almost like a double job that we're supposed to do. And to address the point about the officers, we have more positions than we can fill. So we are working to fill those unfilled positions. I think that that is an important thing, that the city is working to fill those positions, because we do need to make sure we have an adequately staffed department. What we also need to do, because we don't have an unlimited supply of officers, is make sure that the officers we do have are used efficiently and effectively. And
I'm not saying that.
let's really, now, have people been writing, or do people need more time?
I think we're.
Okay. Please, we have, what do you want to do?
Yeah, we have public comment. We've very much appreciated everyone being engaged. Does anybody want to make a formal public comment for the record, and that will be recorded in our city minutes? You have 2 minutes to speak, and you can comment about anything you would like. It is 8:10. Do want to offer up that opportunity, but again, thank you so much for this engaged conversation tonight. We have a few items left. I know everyone's itching to get out. I promise we're almost done. The next meeting is going to be October 23rd at Truman College. That is 1145 West Wilson, right off the Wilson Red Line stop. Please join us 6:30 on Wednesday, October 23rd. A few reminders and calls to action. Yeah, Jenny, go ahead.
Okay. Tonight, we actually have great attendance, but it has been down. Hopefully that was like a summer thing, and now that we're back in the swing of things. One thing that Rick, who's been an awesome supporter of our district council, has done is he's posted our meetings on some different Facebook groups. If anyone wants to help and do that as well, I think that will help drive some attendance. So please come talk to me, and thank you, Rick, for doing that. I see lots of new faces in the room tonight. Also, if you have anyone else who you know of who might be interested in the work that we're doing, we're always interested in having one-on-one conversations. Reach out to me and I am happy to connect with them. We always say, bring a friend. And then the last two, just grab some palm cards, make sure you share your feedback with us either online or on that form. Like Sam said, we really want to be the 22nd district. And if anyone wants to join me tomorrow to make public comment at the fire and police public safety meeting, talk to me. Thank you. Oh,
and with that, at 11:12, we're going to close it out. Thank you everyone so much. And thank you for staying late. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.